The night is silent, but silence always hides a story that crawls under your skin and stays with you forever. Lock your doors, dim the lights, because what you are about to hear cannot be unheard. Welcome to the world of horror. And if you dare to step further, subscribe to this channel for many more terrifying stories await you. The Willow Street House full horror story. I still remember the first night I ever stepped foot inside the house on Willow Street. Even now, years later, I can still smell the dust, the damp wood, and that strange metallic scent that never seemed to fade. People in town always said to stay away from it. They told stories in hushed voices at the diner, at the gas station, in the bar when the lights were low. But no one ever dared to go in. I was young, 21, and stubborn. I didn't believe in ghost stories. To me, the Willow Street House was just another broken building, abandoned for too long. The kind of place that kids dared each other to walk past at night. That evening, the air was heavy, a storm brewing somewhere far away. I had a small flashlight in my hand, but even before I reached the gate, I felt a weight pressing down on me. The gate was open, just as it always was. That was the strange thing about the house. It was never locked. People said no one needed to lock it, because whatever was inside didn't want to leave. I stepped onto the overgrown path, weeds scratching against my legs, and the closer I came, the quieter the world outside seemed. The sounds of crickets and the rustle of trees faded. Even the wind seemed to stop at the porch. The boards creaked beneath my boots. When I reached the front door, I paused. My reflection looked back at me in the broken glass of the window beside it, but for a split second I thought I saw another figure standing next to me, tall, pale, faceless. I blinked, and it was gone. My hand was shaking as I pushed the door open. It groaned loudly, echoing through the hollow halls. The smell hit me immediately, rot mixed with something sharp like rusted metal. The air was colder inside than outside, unnaturally so. My flashlight beam cut through layers of dust. Cobwebs stretched across the corners, but what unsettled me most were the photographs lining the walls. At first glance, they were family pictures. A man, a woman, two children smiling at the camera. But when I brought the light closer, I realized something was wrong. Their eyes were scratched out. Not just in one picture, but in every single one. Deep gouges where their eyes should have been, as if someone had taken a knife and carved them out with rage. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep walking. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, stretching into shadows that didn't quite move the way they should. My boots echoed, but the echo came a second too late, like something was following my steps. I turned around quickly. Nothing. Just empty darkness. The kitchen was the first room I entered. Plates still sat on the dining table, forks frozen in bowls of what might have once been soup. The food had long since turned black and crumbled. Chairs were pulled out, one tipped onto its side. It was as if the family had left in the middle of dinner. I reached out, touching one of the spoons. It rattled against the bowl, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. That's when I heard it. A laugh, not a happy laugh, not the laugh of a child playing. It was slow, broken, stretched out like a recording played too slow. It drifted down from upstairs, echoing through the house. My heart pounded so hard I thought my chest might burst. My first thought was that maybe kids had broken in before me. Maybe they were hiding upstairs. But deep down, I knew better. That laugh didn't sound alive. I tried to tell myself to leave, but my legs moved on their own. I found myself walking toward the staircase. The steps were coated in dust, but I noticed something strange. The middle steps were cleaner, as if someone had been using them recently. I climbed slowly, each step groaning under my weight. My flashlight flickered as if the batteries were dying, though they'd been new. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched into darkness. That's when I saw it. The first door on the right began to swing open, slowly, without a sound. I froze, staring at the dark gap between the door and the frame. My breath caught in my throat. The gap widened inch by inch until I couldn't take it anymore. My shaking hand pushed the door open the rest of the way. It was a child's bedroom. Toys were scattered across the floor, coated in dust. A small bed sat in the corner, sheets grey and stiff. The walls were covered in drawings. At first I thought they were normal crayon scribbles, but when I looked closer my stomach turned. They were dark, black, red, jagged lines covering every inch of the walls, and in all of them tall figures with no faces. Watching. In the centre of the room sat a doll. Its porcelain face was cracked, one glassy eye missing. My flashlight beam landed on it, and for a moment I could swear its mouth moved, just slightly, as it wanted to speak. I stumbled back, hitting the doorframe. My heart raced, my breath shallow, and then it came again. The laugh. Only this time, it wasn't upstairs, it was right behind me. The laugh behind me froze my blood. My whole body went stiff, my mind screaming at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Slowly, painfully, I turned my head toward the sound. There was nothing. Just the empty hallway stretching into shadows. My flashlight beam shook violently in my hand, scattering light across the walls. I backed into the child's room, heart pounding, trying to steady my breathing. But then I noticed something that hadn't been there before. On the wall, between the jagged black drawings, fresh words had appeared, written in a child's uneven handwriting. Don't look at them. The letters were thick, smeared as if painted in something darker than crayon. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to believe what it might be. I forced myself to step back into the hallway. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to get out of the house, but there was something pulling me deeper, like invisible hands pushing me forward. I walked past the other doors, most of them shut tight, their knobs rusted. At the very end of the hall, I saw one door slightly open, a pale light leaking through the crack. The sound of whispering came from inside. Dozens of voices, low, frantic, overlapping each other. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt them in my bones, like the house itself was speaking. I placed my hand on the door and pushed it open. It was the master bedroom. The first thing I noticed was the mirror. It covered nearly the entire wall opposite the bed, cracked in several places. My flashlight beam bounced back at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw more than just my reflection. Behind me in the mirror stood a family, a man, a woman, and 2 children. Their features were blurred, but I could see their hollow eyes. They stood perfectly still. I whipped around. Nothing, just the empty room. But when I looked back at the mirror, they were closer. I stumbled backward, bumping into the dresser. The voices grew louder, swirling around me, whispering in my ears. My flashlight flickered violently, and in those split seconds of darkness, I could see them moving. The family in the mirror was no longer standing. They were crawling, jerking toward me in unnatural, broken movements. My chest tightened. I raised my arm, desperate to smash the mirror, but before I could, the mirror went black, completely black. And then, in the reflection, I saw only one figure, not the family. It was me, but not me. My reflection smiled, lips stretching far wider than humanly possible, and then in a voice that was not my own, it whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." The glass cracked violently, shards raining down across the floor. I dropped my flashlight, plunging the room into near darkness. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled out into the hallway. As I did, I heard footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth in the attic. I didn't want to go up there. Every instinct told me to leave. But something about the footsteps felt purposeful, like whatever was up there had been waiting for me. I found the attic ladder folded into the ceiling. My shaking hands pulled it down, the wood groaning. A thick gust of cold air spilled out, carrying that metallic stench stronger than ever. I climbed, one rung at a time, the voices below fading into silence. The attic was pitch black except for a faint glow at the far end. My eyes adjusted slowly, and that's when I saw it. A circle, drawn onto the floor in some kind of dark, dried substance. Symbols I didn't recognize covered the wooden boards. Candles sat at the edges, melted down to stubs. In the center of the circle was a chair, and in that chair, a body, or what was left of one. The figure slumped forward, ropes binding its arms to the chair. Its skin was stretched tight over bone, face sunken, jaw slack. And yet, I swear its chest moved, just slightly. I stumbled backward, my breath catching. That's when the attic door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, racing to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew heavy, thick, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. Then the body in the chair twitched. Its head jerked up slowly, bones cracking with the movement. Hollow sockets stared in my direction, and though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze pierce me. Its jaw opened wider and wider until the skin tore at the corners, and then it spoke in that same broken, drawn-out laugh I had heard downstairs. The symbols on the floor began to glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air vibrated and shadows clung to the walls, stretching long, reaching toward me. I stumbled to the corner, frantically looking for another way out. My flashlight beam landed on something half buried under a tarp. An old trunk. Without thinking, I pulled the tarp off, grabbed the handle, and yanked it open. Inside were notebooks. Dozens of them, their covers cracked with age. I grabbed the one on top, flipping through the pages. They were filled with drawings, the same faceless figures, the same symbols over and over. And scattered through the pages were words scrawled desperately. They come through the walls. Don't look at their faces. It never ends. The laughter grew louder, the attic vibrating with it. The figure in the chair began to rise, bones creaking, ropes snapping one by one, and then for the first time it spoke words. Clear. Hollow. You're already part of the house. The attic air was suffocating, every breath burning in my chest. The figure in the chair stood now, taller than I expected, its body jerking in unnatural movements. The ropes that had once bound it dangled uselessly, snapping like old vines, its hollow sockets locked on me, and though it had no eyes, I felt pinned to the spot. My legs refused to move. My own breath sounded too loud, echoing in the attic as if the house itself was listening. Then, in a slow, dragging step, it began to move toward me. I clutched the notebook to my chest, my trembling hands smearing the ink. The words swam before my eyes. Burn it! That was the last line written in the book. The handwriting more frantic, more desperate than the rest. Burn it? Burn what? The house? The circle? The body? The figure took another step, its limbs cracking like splintering wood. My flashlight flickered and died completely, plunging me into thick, suffocating blackness. Only the faint glow of the symbols lit the room now, pulsing in rhythm with my racing heart. And then the voices returned, not whispers this time. Screams. Loud, overlapping, shrieking from every corner of the attic. Some cried for help, others laughed hysterically. A child's giggle echoed right by my ear, though nothing was there. I dropped to my knees, covering my ears, but the sound wasn't outside, it was inside my head. You're ours now, they screamed together. You can't leave. Desperation surged through me. I crawled toward the circle, toward the candles and symbols, my hand brushing against the dusty floor. The closer I got, the louder the chanting became, until it felt like the boards beneath me were vibrating with the sound. And then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In the center of the circle, beneath the chair where the figure had been sitting, lay a pile of objects, small toys. A broken doll, a tiny shoe, a rusted hairpin, children's belongings. My stomach churned. This wasn't just a haunted house, it was something worse. Something had been fed here. Sacrifices, maybe. Offerings. The figure let out a guttural sound, halfway between a growl and a laugh. Its jaw stretched open unnaturally, wider and wider until it seemed its head would split in half. Then in a voice layered with dozens of others, it said, "Stay." My body acted on pure instinct. I grabbed one of the half-melted candles, its wax still warm, and shoved it against the notebook. The old, dry pages caught fire instantly. The glow from the symbols flared bright, and the screaming grew louder, angrier. The figure convulsed, its body twitching violently, limbs jerking as if pulled by invisible strings. The attic shook. Dust rained down from the rafters, the floorboards buckled beneath me. I stumbled backward as the fire spread across the pages, the symbols on the floor burning away one by one. The shadows clinging to the walls shrieked, twisting and writhing before exploding into nothingness. The figure collapsed, its body crumbling into ash, the sound of its laugh fading into silence. And then, stillness. The air lightened, the heavy weight on my chest lifting. For the first time since stepping into the house, I could breathe freely. But the relief lasted only seconds, because then I heard it, a sound from below, footsteps, dozens of them. I froze, staring at the attic door as it creaked open on its own. From the darkness below, pale faces began to appear. Children, men, women, their hollow eyes fixed on me, their mouths moving in silent words I couldn't hear. One by one, they climbed into the attic, filling the space around me. Shadows stretched across the walls, crawling, twisting into shapes I couldn't comprehend. And then I realized, burning the notebook hadn't freed them. It had freed the house. The symbols weren't keeping me out. They were keeping them in. The walls groaned, wood splitting as if the house itself was alive. Faces pressed out from the wallpaper, screaming silently. Hands clawed from the floorboards, grabbing at my ankles. I kicked and fought, but they were everywhere, pulling, dragging. My flashlight flickered back to life for just a second, and in that light, I saw the truth. The attic wasn't an attic anymore. It was endless, an infinite stretch of darkness, filled with countless figures, crawling, standing, hanging in the air. All of them staring at me, all of them moving closer. And in the center of it all, the house itself stood. Tall and monstrous, its windows glowing like eyes, its door splitting into a mouth filled with jagged teeth. The last thing I heard before everything went black was the house's voice, booming and endless. You live here now. The story ends here, but the shadows remain. Remember, the night is never truly silent. Something always listens. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories, because the darkness is never far away.